Well, to be honest, there are a lot of states which are rigid in their approach, if you call it rigid. Uh, it's difficult to change them. They have, people of a certain thinking, and they believe in it strongly. I mean, if you talk about Black Lives Matter, I was in the U.S. during the last presidential election, and I saw not the protest, but the aftermath of the protests, and then the election followed by the Black Lives Matter protests. And I also saw how, people were handed out money by the US government. And things in the US probably don't work like they would work in Pakistan and, maybe in Europe or other countries in the world. So there are issues. Now, who's backing which issue and how popular is that issue? It all depends on, for example, Kentucky would have a different opinion, whereas Illinois will have a different opinion on something, and so on and so forth. So, issues, as I said earlier, there were issues. Immigration was an issue, and Donald Trump, as we all saw, he brought things on air, and he stopped immigration, tried to stop immigration, I would say, wasn't very successful. So, and then there's the issue of, crime rate as well. That's been increasing in certain states. So, but these issues, as we saw in this election, they really couldn't do much. President Biden, despite the fact that his popularity has been, less than 50%, or approval rating, say, has been less than 50%, and despite all of that, despite his approval rating being down, the Republicans really couldn't make a real dent. As I said earlier, there was no red wave. Everyone in the Republicans was expecting there'd probably be a red wave due to the lack of a clear policy, as Mr. Schlanger said, by President Biden. But there has been nothing concrete, especially the economy, because people have been suffering. The petrol prices, energy prices, groceries have gone up. Everything's gone expensive. Inflation has really hit the people. But despite high inflation, the Republicans could not get those results as were expected because, they could not emphasize more,
Right.
despite the fact they are being heard. They could not emphasize to the people, to the voters, that, this is an issue that they can bring something, some change about. For example, Donald Trump, he was the person, who went out to companies and asked them to set up in the US after a long time. As Mr. Schlanger said, they have deindustrialized the US. That's what the US needs to do. And Donald Trump did work on it. He did try to bring things, back to the way they were, not on such a scale, but, as much as he could. And despite that, despite people knowing that, this is what he's going to do, there was not much of an effect. There was no dent in the vote bank. If we look in the House of Representatives, for example, as we were talking earlier, the voting issues. Now, the members will vote according to the issue. It's not necessary that the whole party goes and votes, for Republicans or for Democrats on, one certain issue. Some of the representatives may not favor one issue. Some may do, So it really depends from issue to issue as far as legislation is concerned. But these
Right.
issues could have been capitalized on by the Republicans. Unfortunately, they could not stress more upon.